Hey Janelle, I'm just gonna try this. Does this work all right?
Yes, I can hear you well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, Commissioner Wilson.
I am here. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioner Freeze.
Good morning, Janelle.
Thank you. Sound great.
President Hubble, Commissioner Meyer is excused today.
Right, I remember that. And it's excuse me. It's 8 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting of the Metropolitan Sewerage District to order. Janelle, would you like to go through the roll call, please?
Yes. Commissioner Bookland, I don't believe is with us yet. Okay, Commissioner Clark,
Here.
Commissioner Eskridge, Commissioner Freeze,
Here.
Commissioner Havel,
Here.
Commissioner Murphy,
Here.
Commissioner Rummel, Commissioner Wilson.
I am here.
Commissioner Havel, you have 5 in attendance.
Okay, so we have a quorum to conduct business. Okay, so we'll move on to, I'll call the meeting to order now with the roll call complete. Welcome to all of our guests. Janelle, could you go through the virtual meeting guidance, please?
Certainly. Good morning, commissioners, members of the public, and staff. To help us have a smooth meeting, I'm going to review just a few decorum rules for all to please follow. Number 1, please ensure your mic is muted unless you are speaking. Number 2, please state your name before speaking. Number 3, for those who are speaking, please have your cameras on if possible. You may turn your cameras off if you're experiencing technological challenges. And number 4, as a reminder, the public chat has been disabled, but you can still send messages to the host if need be. And this meeting is being recorded and streamed live on YouTube. So with that, let's have a great meeting, everyone, and welcome.
Okay, thank you, Janelle. That will move us to appearances, to announcements. Michael, you have any announcements?
I do not.
Okay, so we'll move on to appearances by the public. Does anybody from the public that's attending here virtually wish to say anything? Anybody from the public here wish to say anything? Okay, seeing no hands or anybody saying anything, we'll move on to the consent calendar where we have several items. The approval of the meeting minutes from the 29th of February, the approval of cash statement capital fund, approval of expedited boundary annexation in the city of Verona. We have 2 new and 2 reconstruction projects for review of sanitary sewer extension plans. Review of proposal and award of contracts for the 24 Metro Grow hauling. Review of bids and purchase of 24 fleet vehicle purchases. Approval of transaction amount for boiler preventative maintenance services. And approval of intergovernmental agreement regarding the transfer of the RIK sanitary sewer. So do we have any questions on any of these items? Greg, go ahead.
I just wanna, if we're gonna summarily act on those, I just need to recuse myself from the RIK because that involves the city of Madison directly. And in fact, I wrote part of that agreement, so that feels like a conflict for me.
Okay, thank you, Greg. So what we'll do is we'll vote on all the other items before RIK on which you can vote. So we'll vote on items A through G, and then we'll vote again on item H. Does that make sense? Okay, seeing no other comments or questions, everybody in favor of the consent calendar items A through G, say aye.
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 Hey, Tom, it's Tom Wilson. Do you
Yeah.
want an actual motion to do
Oh,
that?
that's right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We need the motion.
If so, I'll move approval of the items on the consent calendar and request a separate vote as you suggested.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by
I'll second that, Tom. Commissioner Clark.
Commissioner Clark. Sorry about that, getting ahead of myself. Okay, all in favor of consent calendar motion items A through G, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, so do we have a motion to approve consent calendar item H?
I'll move approval of item H on the consent agenda.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Murphy. Do we
It's
have a
Wilson,
second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Murphy, second by Commissioner Wilson to approve consent calendar item H with Greg Freeze abstaining, and we've had a couple other people join, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, thank you. That will take us to our topics. The first topic is 4A, authorization of increased total project cost, minor capital improvements in 2024. Eric Rear, you're going to lead this.
Correct. Is my screen visible, Janelle?
Looks good,
Good.
Eric.
Okay, it's the first time I've done this, so. All right, good morning, Commissioners. I'm Eric Rare, Maintenance and Reliability Manager here at the district. I'm here this morning to talk to you about the authorization of increased total project costs for our minor capital improvements project in 2024. So just for a refresher, the minor capital improvements project, this is reserved for a minor capital improvement or reserved for minor capital improvements that often arise during the year. These are projects that are larger than our routine maintenance projects, but smaller than most of our CIP projects. Improvements where like emergency or prompt attention is important, so we get these done right away. And for 2024, this project has a budget of $125,000 included in the capital budget. So for the project in 2024, what we're proposing is to do some West Loop hot water piping replacements. The project's being driven by leaks and the inability to repair them in this hot water loop. The scope is larger than a routine maintenance project. It's not something we can just repair in-house. This has been deemed an emergency due to the nature of the leak and the structures it services, and immediate replacement is required. And the project cost the total is over the $125,000 that's budgeted in the CIP this year. So an increase in total project costs will be needed. So just to give you an idea where the piping is located that we want to replace, we have the operations building on top there. The line in yellow is what's going to be replaced. So it's underground piping that serves the operations building, the west aeration gallery and west side of the treatment plant. It's underground through the parking lot and through some terraces, so some excavations can be required to perform this project. So the issues with this pipe that I just showed, it's constructed of pre-insulated fiberglass, which is typically not used for hot water piping. We typically use carbon steel. Sections of this pipe are 40 plus years old. They're installed in the 6th edition and 7th editions in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Since recent years, they've had a history of leaks. Leaks that end up leaking, sometimes hundreds of thousands or hundreds or thousands of gallons into the out of the pipeline at a time. So we got to do a quick repair on those. The fiberglass piping requires specialized fittings and tools for installation and repair, something that we don't have here in house. And a recent major break was deemed unrepairable with normal methods such as like pipe clamps or repair patches, things like that. So just to give you an idea, on the lower right, where I have noted a leak location, this is where our carbon steel pipe meets the fiberglass line, and this area has been prone to leaks. Almost annually, we dig it up and put a repair patch on it. It leaks mainly in this area because you got two different materials, steel and fiberglass. They expand at different rates, causing the leakage. And the major break location there on the left, this occurred in January or early February, I think early February. Basically, the pipe sheared. A lot of water came out. We lost pressure in the system. We immediately had to shut things down. I do have a picture of those pipelines here. Circled with the dashed circles are 3 different breaks in the pipeline. So there's a hole and 2 like shear fractures. You could see on the bottom of the first picture and on the picture on the right. So the importance and urgency of this project, it's the major pipeline break is unrepairable. We don't have the tools to fix the fiberglass piping. It's a heating and cooling source for the operations building. So in the winter, it heats the operations building. In the summer, we take the hot water, run it through an absorption chiller, and that actually cools the building. It's a heat source for other process buildings on the west side of the plant. And it's also a heat sink for the blower engine. What I mean by that is once the hot water flows basically through the operations building in the west side and the heat's used out of it, we send that water to the engine where it picks up new heat. So it actually cools the engine, and we're using that waste heat from the engine to reheat the water. If we don't have this loop in service and the temperatures get hot enough, we might not be able to use the blower engine, which is less biogas we're using and more electricity we're purchasing in the end to aerate the east side of the plant. So the scope of the project involves removing the existing fiberglass piping, underground piping, replacing that with new carbon steel piping with the proper thrust blocking to protect against expansion. The scope includes all excavation and backfilling by the contractor, removal and replacement of any curb, sidewalk, and floor. But what I mean by floor is in the operations building. This piping comes into the building underground about 10 feet, so they'll have to break up some of the floor to get it installed properly. Removal and replacement of any pavement, they'll keep it to a minimum, trying to keep the trench and width to minimum. So we're removing as little as possible, but we will need to replace some of the pavement. And just the site restoration, grading, seeding, things like that. Total project cost, I guess the main number we want to look at is the bottom number, $199,200. That includes the construction costs, some change order allowances, and engineering costs. So the requested action today, we're asking the commission to approve the resolution 2024-0314R10. Increases the total project cost for the minor capital improvements project in 2024 from 125,000 to 200,000, and authorizes the use of emergency procedures to procure the materials and execute the work. And with that, I will take any questions.
Okay, Eric, thank you. Anybody have any questions? Okay. I don't see any hands up, so let's move to no questions. Well, is there somebody that excuse me, can provide a motion?
Commissioner Havel, before you do, I just want to have a correction. Please just approve the resolution, not the number. I think it might have been misquoted.
Okay, approving the resolution. So what number's in the resolution? Open that.
Right, I can't see the packet with the meeting up.
Okay, just a minute. Oops, I think I hit the wrong one. Hit the staff report. Let's see. Okay, the resolution authorizes the commission to increase the project cost from $125,000 to $200,000. So I thought that's what he said. So is that what we're doing, Eric? The resolution's correct?
Correct. We're going from 125 to 200.
Okay. Okay. So do we have a motion to approve the resolution 2024-03-14R10?
This is Commissioner Freeze. I would move approval.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Freeze. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Bookland. I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Freeze, second by Commissioner Bookland to approve resolution 2024-03-14-R10, increasing the minor capital improvements from $125,000 to $200,000. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None, motion carries. Okay, that will take us item 4B, the award of contract and project update, enterprise resource planning, ERP implementation project. Dana Reed.
Okay. Let me know if you can't see it. I believe it's
Looks good, Dana.
Okay, thank you. So good morning, Commission. I'm Dana Reed, and I'm the Director of Enterprise Services. And I'm excited today to share with you where we are with the Enterprise Resource Planning, or ERP. You'll hear that term a lot in this presentation. Project, and we also have an award of contract today for a consulting firm to manage the project. So I'm going to go over what an ERP is and why we need one at the district, where we are in the process, what are the steps, what are some success factors that we've identified, who's managing the project, and finally, ask for your support and engagement on this project and how you would like to be engaged. So what is an ERP? It's really just a fancy name for software that manages business things. For instance, spending control, our purchasing, budget and financial reporting, payroll, HR data. It can do many more things than that, but that's what we've identified for our current needs here at the district. The term was developed in the 1990s by a consultant, and it was really trying to capture that this new thing called web-based software in the 90s could help businesses manage things better. That's all it means. Why do we need an ERP? So this is an actual picture of one of my accounting team members. And I mean, joking aside, this is how it feels some days to manage financial information at the district. So we get the job done and we do it well. We have clean audits, as you know, but we're incredibly inefficient at our job. So the district has grown in the last 20 years, and just by budget, number of purchases, number of staff, number of capital projects, et cetera. And our accounting and HR systems have not changed in over 20 years. Probably longer, actually, but for sure, 20 years, they haven't changed. So they haven't grown with us. We use a variety of paper, we use spreadsheets, we use some different in-house systems that we've developed to help us manage all this data. And asking simple or what seem like simple business questions, for instance, how much have I spent this year against my budget, can take us a lot of time to get the number. And so it's really a driver for the ERP, but it's not the only driver. There are a number of others. And I want to give you some examples of real life challenges we have day to day because we don't have an ERP. I mentioned that we don't have modern financial or HR software, but we also don't have a single source of the truth or a single source of data. And so what does that look like? For instance, accounting may have a different number on how much you've spent against your budget for this year than the work group does, because they may have spreadsheets and looking at data in a different way. So we have two numbers. We might have a different number in accounting on how much has been spent on a capital project than what the engineering department has. And so in those cases, which number is the number that you trust? It's difficult to know. They might both be right numbers, by the way, but we're looking at them different ways with different data sets. Another driver for ERP is lack of internal controls. So an example of this would be if we create a PO for 50,000, we don't have a system that would alert us if the invoices against that PO total 51,000, for example. We will pay the invoices, obviously, but we don't have any alert or stops in the system to help us identify that and correct it. No real-time data for financial monitoring, analysis, and planning. I've mentioned how finding a number for budget versus spend takes us a while. And once we have the number developed, or we found the number, that number is already out of date because it's not real time, right? It's taken us a while to get the number. So not having that real-time data to enable decision-making is another driver. Inefficient processes. We often have to enter data in multiple systems or spreadsheets to complete a process. And all these inefficient processes also have created frustration with accounting staff, and in a really competitive market in Madison for accountants, turnover is also a key driver for the district. So if you Google ERP projects, you'll run across this number pretty quickly. 50% of these projects fail. And so we as a district have really been looking at why they fail and how we can mitigate that risk. And it's really the same 5 reasons they fail. The first is lack of executive support. And so I'll show you in a minute that we have a governance structure set up that we believe will address that. Our executives, our directors are really engaged with this project. A number of them are on the steering committee, and we're also here with you today talking about the project. So we feel that we have addressed executive support to make this project successful. The second is resource alignment. This is going to be a lot of work for staff, especially staff in IT, accounting, HR, but across the district, really. And so making sure that this is part of their work and not extra work on top of their day-to-day work is going to be key. And so we're looking at that, and we'll also be looking at ways as we move through this project, if we need to backfill positions, that we could do that also temporarily. Strong project and change management. This is why we've gone out and did an RFP and found a firm that could provide this for us throughout the life of the project. Process reengineering. And what this means is we can't take our current processes and put them into this new modern software. We really need to look at our processes and change things, fix things. that we can before we implement the new software. And then finally, and this one's really important, is training and support for staff. Staff have to feel comfortable using the software and be supported, as well as new staff coming on. So this has to be something that is ongoing and doesn't stop when we go live with the software. What are the steps? So we're currently in the planning phase. You'll see the red area at the top. So we've selected a project management firm to work with us throughout the life cycle of this project. And they will come in, and in the next 6 months, they can start in April. They will come in and define our needs. They'll do a needs assessment across the district, and they'll gather requirements. With a project like this, there will be hundreds, if not 1,000 requirements. So there's a lot of work here. And that's why it will take 6 months for them to get all of that together. They will draft an RFP for us, and through that RFP, we'll select our software and our implementation services. That will be about 3 months. And then finally, the longest phase of the project is the actual implementation. And they'll install the software the vendor we select will install the software, help us migrate all of our historical data. And we'll have to clean up that data, migrate, and we'll be doing a lot of testing in this phase too. And then finally, training for staff. I want to point out one other thing that this vendor brings to us, which is they're going to advocate for the district at all steps in this process. So they've done 150 of these types of projects in the public sector. They've worked really closely with 15 different ERP vendors, which is the majority of the ERP vendors out there in this space. And so they're going to provide that oversight and advocacy for us in all of these phases. They'll help us with contract negotiation. They'll help us when we're testing to make sure that the software is actually meeting the requirements. Once it's installed, they'll provide oversight of the training program and identify gaps. So that advocacy piece is really important throughout the project. Here's our governance structure. And so we have a steering committee that's made up of directors, some managers, and subject matter experts across the district. The project manager from the consulting firm will staff the steering committee. I'm the executive sponsor, and I'll be coming to the commission to provide you with regular updates on where we are. And then you'll see across the bottom that we have 4 functional work groups. So these represent the core modules in the ERP that will be implementing: finance and accounting, HR, IT, and then purchasing. And those teams will be a combination of consultants and district staff with a team lead and report up to the project manager. Commission support. So I've identified 3 ways that the commission could support and engage with the project here, but I'm really interested in knowing what information do you want about the project? What concerns do you have, or how would you like to be engaged?
Okay, was that a question for us right now, or you have more?
Yeah, that would,
Okay. Excuse me.
if there are ways other than the 3 that I have identified up here, I would,
Okay,
I would
Ken,
love to know.
Ken's got a comment. Go ahead, Ken.
Dana, is there any way to get a kind of like a operations project or a capital project to have deadlines met by the software companies to meet the needs of the district, or is that too hard to pin down?
Nope, no. So there'll be a full timeline with milestones and deadlines and deliverables outlined.
Okay, so that's if something gets off track, we at least have an agreement to hold the software company or the consultant accountable.
Yes, we do.
Good.
Okay, Greg?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ken. I'm following up on that mainly because my group is in the middle of something like that. And I guess the question is, in terms of holding somebody accountable, what does that actually mean, right? So sometimes when you're working with a consulting firm, right, if they're late, your choices, at least our choices sometimes in how we write these contracts are somewhat limited. You can always, of course, terminate the contract, but then that feels in many cases like much of the sunk costs that you have already, let's say they're a month late, right? You don't want to terminate. Is there and this is an ask really for me to figure out how we're going to do this better on some of our projects as well, because sometimes it's, you cut off your nose to spite your face to let somebody go because they have so much work behind them already that you really can't, or at least it would be very difficult to discharge them and hire somebody new. So I'm just curious what that might be if you guys have thought that through, if they are not meeting their timelines.
So we're gonna have two contracts. The contract here for the management of the project. We do have something in there that after phase 3, we could terminate if we're not satisfied with their performance. So that's something that we have, but it doesn't quite get to what you're asking, because if you terminate them, then you're stuck, right? You're in the middle of the project. I have at another position before the district, we have had some issues with a software developer not performing, and we had to go through dispute resolution, and they actually gave us funds back. I mean, that wasn't the ideal process either. But that's something that will be very important to look at when we do the contract with the software provider. I'm not as worried about the contract with the management firm. I think just their reputation alone, they've been in business 50 years and worked with 150 of these different projects. And I don't think they're going to want to have a bad relationship with the district. But it is something that we're really going to look at with the software vendor.
I'd like to add to that. I think the team has put together a very thorough request for proposal and scope of work, which many times is where a lot of the problems are with these types of things, and going through a selection process where we have a consultant that has performed very well on these, which will always minimize those types of challenges.
Thank you.
Marcia, Paul, then Marcia.
Just a quick note, and we can talk about this when it comes time for the contract, but I would just note that sometimes you can work out some incentives and penalties in contracts. Now, it may not be acceptable to the vendor, but those may be some options we can think about when the time comes. Just a thought.
Okay, Marcia, go ahead.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning. So the city has had, I guess I'm feeling a little bit triggered here because I know the city adopted ERP and I'm still hearing about it 15 years later, various things about it. And Greg probably knows way more than me. It seemed like at some point we got stuck with something and when we're spending millions of dollars. So I'm just not trying to scare anyone, but this isn't a thing that just starts and you implement it and train people and then you're off. It seems like maybe the city is more complex, but it doesn't seem like it seemed like it was really needed and helpful, but it seemed like it took a while to implement. So I don't really know what I'm telling you other than I felt compelled to share my, like, oh yeah, ERP, I know about that. Like for example, and this is not at all related to what would happen at the sewage district, but because we had the water utility with its own financials suddenly having to shift over to the ERP plus having PSC regulatory things. I mean, that was just kind of crazy making for at least the people involved. But anyway, I'll stop there with a question. Given the earlier presentation about assets that break, does this process deal at all with our infrastructure capital stuff? managing those kind of things, or is it more just the, the soft things like people and financial platforms, et cetera?
Yeah, this system would not manage capital assets.
Thank you.
And as to your other comments, Commissioner Rommel, I mean, I've been through an ERP project too at the state of Wisconsin, and they are complex and they are long, and lots of things can happen. So some of the risks that I identified earlier, I think if we really look at those, one of them was process reengineering. A lot of the reason things take longer and people are unhappy is because they weren't willing to change how they do business before the system was implemented. And so we're really dedicated to looking at that. I think that will help.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. Anyone else? Okay, I had a couple questions. First, kind of building off of Marcia said, I thought I remembered years ago, and this is probably maybe something's been done, but I thought there was going to be software to kind of combine everything, including asset management or reliability centered maintenance, which we'll have next, and other aspects all into one kind of software so everybody knew. But I'm kind of getting the feeling that this isn't doing capital projects. So I don't know how that, if it's not doing that, is it properly integrating everything we need to have integrated?
Yeah, so there will be 2 software projects. So this will be, the ERP will be for the financial and HR, and then there'll be a software project for what you're talking about which is maintenance and assets. And the reason being is there really isn't a system that specializes in both of them. You're either going to get a system that does one really well and you're trying to make it do the other. So that's why we have split the projects, but that's probably what you're referring to, President Hubble.
Yeah, it is. So you're splitting the project because the software is not out there. So that kind of comes up to another question. So bear with me, I got a few of them. Is the software highly customizable, or is it generally open source off the shelf rather than, where they're going to have to customize it for the district? And then what I'm concerned about is a proprietary software that they customize for us, but they retain ownership of. And then anything that happens, we have to go back to the software firm, whether, that if there's a mistake or something or error, and you're paying them to correct their own error.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. So we are going to limit customizations. So that will help with one of your questions, because the more you customize it, the harder it is to maintain and upgrade, and the more expensive it is too. So it is commercial, off the shelf. However, there a lot's happened in the last 20-25 years in this space, and they are highly configurable. So there's things in there that you can do, us as a district can do, to configure the software to meet our needs without relying so heavily on the vendor.
Okay.
But regardless of that, we will be in a relationship with the vendor for the life of however long we use the software, right? We'll be dealing with software licenses and upgrades. So that's part of the project, unfortunately.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so let me see if I think that. And one other question, what set this firm apart from Baker Tilly?
Oh, that's a good question. So we felt that this firm, which is Barry Dunn, really addressed some IT concerns we had better. So we know that because we have data in different systems at the district, that we're going to need to spend a lot of time on integrations between systems and migrating data. And we thought that Barry Dunn presented a good proposal on that. They also are bringing in a lot of subject matter experts at different times. In fact, they have 15 in their proposal. So for instance, when we're doing a needs assessment for HR, they have 2 different experts on HR they're bringing in just for that piece. And so we really liked that breadth of knowledge. They also, they've been around 50 years, but they started out doing accounting. And so we also have that resource there that we can tap if we have accounting questions as we move forward in the project. So those were the key differentiators.
Okay, thank you. Tom, go ahead.
Thanks, Dana. Were you talking about like quarterly updates, perhaps, or what were you talking about? I'm trying to get to your question a little bit, with some kind of report that goes in our agenda packet, and then a brief sort of summary that you would give, or what were you thinking about how you were going to give these regular updates?
Yeah, I was thinking quarterly.
Okay, all right. I think that'd be great. And like I said, if you wanted to be, give us a report that could actually get in the agenda packet, that'd be the best way to do it. Plus some kind of brief summary that you could give, because it'd be always good to hear if there's something in particular that you need as well from us. And I understand your difference between that you were talking about with Barry Dunn and Baker Tilly. Was the difference in cost mainly services that you thought that you might need that Baker Tilly perhaps didn't just include? It wasn't anything, they weren't unresponsive to the request for proposal, were they in any way, or was that a concern?
No, yeah, we did not think they had enough hours for the IT piece. Also, the reason that the Baker Tilly quote is lower is because they were assuming they would leverage some work they've already done with the district.
Okay, that helps. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there anyone else that has any comments or questions? I can't think of anything else right now, but I think before I get to Marcia, could I just ask, can you put a timeline together of how this project is going to work, and then how is your next project for the capital project, the asset management and everything, where that fits? Does it follow right after, or does it start before this one's done, or however that is? It'd be nice to see. So we know how, because hopefully those software can still talk to each other somewhat. I don't know.
They will.
Yeah. Okay, Marcia, you have a question?
I just wanted to follow up on the point about Baker Tilly, because that sounded to me, my takeaway was we still have a relationship with them. If the quoting, the leverage other work, does that mean we'll still have an ongoing relationship with them? I'm just curious.
Well, we don't have any engagement with them right now, but they have worked with the district a couple times in the past. And so I would assume that they would bid on other consulting work that we have. So
Okay.
It's a good relationship that we have with them.
Thanks.
So I'm sorry. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, Dana, you have to finish up with anything, or do you have the information you need?
No, I do have one piece here, just asking the commission to adopt the resolution authorizing the agreement for the managed services contract with Barry Dunn in the amount of $158,228.
Okay. So thank you, Dana. Anybody have any questions or comments again before we move on to get a motion? Okay, do we have a motion to approve resolution 2024-03-14 authorizing agreement for managed services with Barry Dunn in the amount of $158,228?
It's Wilson, and I'll move that resolution as noted here.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson to approve the resolution. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Freeze. I'll second.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Freeze to adopt resolution 2024-03-14 with Barry Dunn. Do we have any comments or discussion? Any comments or discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed? Okay, none, motion carries. Okay.
you.
So that will
Thanks,
take
Dana.
us,
Thanks, Dana.
that will take us to the study session, reliability centered maintenance. Matthew Schuman, go ahead.
Present my screen here. Okay, can everybody hear me
Looks-
and see my screen?
Looks good, Matt.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Matthew Schuman. I'm Reliability Process Manager at the district, and I'm going to be co-presenting this presentation with Eric Rare.
And good morning again. I'm Eric Ware, Maintenance and Reliability Manager for the district. So just as a recap, so what is RCM? RCM is basically a subset of holistic asset management. Holistic asset management basically spans the entire life of an asset from cradle to grave. RCM focuses on maintaining and extending the useful life of equipment through improvements in operations and maintenance practices. So through RCM, we're constantly gathering and capturing data to aid us in the future and foster improvements with equipment design, installation, and decommissioning.
So last year, I think around the June timeframe, we presented to the commission on our reliability centered maintenance or RCM strategy that focused in two core areas. One was improving the efficiency of our crews. The other was improving the effectiveness of the work that they do on a daily basis to impact strategic focus areas. So with today's presentation, we want to give you some updates on how we did against those efficiency initiatives, really how we're doing more work with our existing resources. The other key piece of this is we're working on some exciting things in 2024 on increasing effectiveness, ultimately increasing the amount of planned work, limiting emergencies or catastrophic failures, and ultimately saving the district more time and money. So with the commission support, we created 2 full-time planner positions in 2023. So just a reminder, a maintenance planner is a resource in the maintenance department that's responsible for scoping maintenance work for parts, labor, tools ahead of time. They get the right maintenance work ready to go. So you have the technicians not spending time on figuring that out. They can focus on completing the right work. In addition to that, they're constantly learning. A lot of times you don't know what you're getting into when you repair an asset until you actually tear it apart. They're constantly gathering the details after the work's finished to make sure we capture that and we use it in the planning process the next time we do work on that. The really exciting thing is in 2022, we planned roughly 106 jobs per month with part-time planning in our departments. So that's the red line you see on the graph shown there. In 2023, we increased that number to 124 jobs prepped and planned per month. So that's 17% more work we planned in 2023. And I think the other exciting thing is we're already significantly planning more work in 2024 through the first 2 months than we did in 2023. But that work planning is only as good as our ability to actually get that work done in the field. So a major piece that we also focused on is weekly scheduling, work scheduling. Really what this weekly scheduling is a routine with maintenance and operations where we work together on increasing the efficiency of our crews to ultimately get work done. And how it does that is first, we understand a week in advance how much available labor we have for a crew, and we fill up that available labor with work orders that have been planned. We don't want our crews going out to the job and waiting for parts, right? So they're scheduling from a work bucket that's already got the materials needed, ready to go. It also gives our operations team an upfront notice of the processes and assets we need to have down to complete the work. So the reality is they can plan ahead of time on these outages. We have the equipment down and ready to go. So maintenance isn't waiting around. If the equipment's ready to go, we can start the work. all this work has shown some really positive results. So really the end result is more work got done in 2023 than did in 2022, which was also kind of a banner year since we started a revised work order tracking routine in early 2020. So you can see here the increase shown. Roughly 1,700 more maintenance tasks were finished within the maintenance crews in 2023 than in 2022. And we did that without significantly increasing headcount in those departments. So those increases in work getting finished came largely from just being more efficient with how we use our time and resources. The final piece I'm excited to share about is our inventory. So all that maintenance work requires parts and services. We procure those parts and services by issuing purchase orders. So purchase order, a PO, these take time to quote, issue, receive, update, and close on a daily basis. And what we were able to do is, even with those increased work order tracking or work order completion and work order planning burden on the system, we were able to procure those parts and services by issuing less POs. How we did that is a couple ways. One, upfront planning gives us more time to bundle purchase orders. So instead of on a constant basis issuing emergency POs for single parts, we can hold a PO open for a longer period of time, add more parts to that purchase order, and issue it in a single time to that vendor. Additionally, we stocked up on parts we know we use on a weekly or monthly basis. So instead of ordering those on a monthly basis, we stock up so we have enough for a year and prevent those orders from happening more frequently. And both those activities, really the payback for us is we got time back, 2.5 weeks overall. And that's time we invested in doing more improvement activities, cleaning up our inventory, and also supporting the planned work processes we just talked about.
So through RCM, we're looking to improve the effectiveness of our work to impact our strategic focus areas. We want to shift our culture from a reactive work culture where we're dealing with issues as they come up, to a proactive culture, mitigating failures before they arise. In the end, this is a safer, cheaper, and less risky for the district. So what we have here is probably a failure curve for a piece of equipment. Basically the bottom axis is time, and the left axis is the probability of failure. As time goes on, as an equipment or asset is used, it's most likely going to move towards failure. That's at the end of the curve. There are ways to mitigate those failures by changing your maintenance practices. So right now, where the we live here arrow is preventative maintenance. Those are basically doing time-based or equipment manufacturer-based tasks to keep the asset functioning properly. The problem with preventative maintenance is you really don't know the health of your equipment. You're just doing maintenance that's suggested to keep it operating. In 2024 and last year a little bit, we tried to move towards predictive maintenance. Predictive maintenance is using tools to basically find out the health of your equipment and find minor defects before they become major. Through the predictive maintenance, you can make repairs to the equipment much more cheaply, much more effectively, and much earlier to prevent catastrophic failure. Also in 2024, we're looking to move towards precision maintenance. Precision maintenance is basically on the upfront or commissioning end of putting a piece of equipment in place. We're looking to get that equipment aligned properly, set properly, and lubricated with the proper lubricants, both the amount of lubricant and the type of lubricant. Next slide, Matt. One way we tried to increase effectiveness last year was performing electrical signature analysis. Electrical signature analysis is a tool that's been developed by the gentleman here, Howard Penrose. It basically evaluates the condition of mechanical equipment or rotating equipment for motors and driven equipment. Basically, they're looking at the electrical signature that the piece of equipment produces. And through his programs, He's identified different defects that you can basically see through these electrical signatures. Last year, we had about 100 assets analyzed, and it takes about 3 to 5 minutes per asset for the analysis to be completed. Through this analysis, we found 105 defects before failure. Things like bearings wearing out, shaft imbalances, impeller imbalances, things like that. Defects that can be fixed early and cost effectively without the equipment catastrophically failing. Also through his program, you can see he can calculate the amount of initial or additional electrical demand on assets based on these defects. So what he found is annually we could be using about 242,000 more kilowatts of electrical demand based on these defects. By curing these defects, we can possibly save up to $35,000 a year in energy costs. Through the signature analysis, some other things came about. Through these defects, we could tell we're not lubricating our assets properly, or our assets aren't aligned properly. And this is where precision maintenance comes in, getting that equipment set up properly so it functions well over the long term. This comes through training and standardization. Getting the proper lubricants set up for the proper pieces of equipment, the proper amounts and types. Having our equipment lined properly to proper tolerances keeps it running optimally. If you're not doing these things, you're actually introducing failure into the equipment and decreasing its life. Other than lubrication type and amount, lubrication cleanliness is a major contributor to asset failures and something we're looking to upgrade on. You might look at new oil when you take it out of the jug or out of the barrel, and it looks clean, brand new, but actually there's things called critical clearance particles in oil. These are particles you can't see with the naked eye, but they can get in between the clearances of things like bearings. And those are the particles that actually do the most damage to the equipment. So through filtration, we are able to get the oil cleaner than the original equipment manufacturer standards, and we can prolong the equipment life up to 2 years. The final effectiveness tool we're using is ultrasonic analysis. You can see Dan there performing an analysis. It's basically a tool that can hear frequencies that the human ear can't hear, but they indicate there's minor mechanical or electrical defects with the equipment. These are things like air leaks in pipes. You can't hear it. It's very quiet to the human ear, but these pick them up pretty well. And these air leaks can actually cost a lot of money in the end with compressors running longer, etc. Using the ultrasonic tool, you can actually decrease the amount of time it takes to PM equipment by 66%, saving 307 hours annually, or about $46,000 in labor, as opposed to traditional methods of PMing electrical equipment or mechanical equipment. With that, Matt and I will take any questions, and I forgot to start my video.
Okay, thank you, Eric and Matt. Beth, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just more of a comment than a question, but I think this is terrific. I wholeheartedly support this. I can see a lot of advantages for doing this. And I think it's a terrific program. I do have kind of a question though, and that is, this is a really timely topic given the spill that we had recently, and I'm just wondering if there's any way that we could apply this to our underground pipes and valves and something like that to really kind of foresee any potential damage in the future and kind of take care of that. So be interested to hear what you think about that. Thank you.
Matt, would you like to take this, or you want me to take it?
I can start, and if you want to jump in. So
Sure.
Thanks. Thank you for the question. That's a good one. I think we're not promising to be able to solve, every single failure that's out there. With RCM, I think it's a learning process that takes a lot of time, and we're just kind of starting out in our journey on this process. But I think the big thing that RCM does instill or teach is when you do have an experience or a failure that like this that occurred last week, we should spend an equal amount of time on understanding how that failure occurred and put standards and processes in place to prevent that from ever occurring again, right? So I think that's a big mindset shift that comes with RCM. Is a lot of times we jump to fix the issue or resolve the issue, but maybe less time is spent after the fact once that issue is resolved on understanding why and preventing it in the future. And I think the RCM principle is really shifting that time to how do I do more preventative work that's ultimately going to fix this in the future. So I guess that's one comment that might help with that. The other thing is there are different predictive maintenance tools that can help verify conditions of certain assets. I think we're only just scratching the surface with what's available out there. Electrical signature analysis and ultrasound, they're kind of like quick wins. They're easy to train. They're really precise. We can understand what the condition is, and that's why we're choosing to implement those now. Long term, I think there's a lot more opportunity for different types of tools to apply to these situations. So I don't know, Eric, if you have anything else. Otherwise, I hope I answered your question.
You did, thank you. And I would look forward to hearing more about some of those future options coming up in the next, year or so. Just to hear, an update on that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Beth. Anyone else have a comment or a question? Ken, go ahead.
Yeah, Matt and Eric, does the district have an inventory of the assets underground and the age of those? I'm curious. Not sure I've ever heard that before.
Yeah, I can take this one. So yes, we have some process piping identified within our asset management tool, which is WAM. You've probably heard that before. WAM right now is our combined asset management and ERP tool. So yes, we do have some categorization of process piping. However, it's a little more difficult to track because it's not as specific as a standalone asset. Like an example, a pump and motor has a single set location. It's easier to track, identify, that sort of thing. So with long sections of pipe and piping, it's a little more difficult to track that information, but we do have some of that available. And a major part of what my team and Eric, with Eric's team's help, is doing is trying to get better data on installed date, cost to install, those sorts of things. So I'm not going to sit here and guarantee we have every single number for every single pipe at the district, but that is one of the goals we're working towards. Is these assets are tracked, they're identified, the date of installation is known, and then that starts to be something that can feed future capital improvement project planning, et cetera. We're not quite there yet. We're still working on building the foundational baseline data that feeds into it, but just know that's an eventual plan of where we want to go as an organization.
Yeah, that sounds good. I just didn't know if anyone had captured that information over the course of time or not, but it sounds like it's on the radar screen for the future.
Matt,
Yeah.
this is Amanda. Can I just interject for one moment? If you can just clarify, you had said process piping, and Commissioner Clark may have also been asking about collection system pipes. So if you can just provide a little bit of clarity there, I think that would be great.
Yeah, so we have piping both in our plant, obviously, and then we have all the force mains and cross collectors, et cetera, in our collection system. Both are tracked within our system. The collection system condition data is tracked a little bit differently. So there are things like manhole inspections. Our collection system crew does do condition monitoring of those force mains as well. So that exists in our collection system. process piping really talks about piping within the plant. And what I would say to that is there's less condition data and analysis being done on that, but I think it's eventual goal. I mean, one thing I could come back with, if there's interest of it, I could show what's available now, if that's something of interest, and kind of do a follow-up. So I'll just put that out there too. But Amanda, I hope that helped, or that's what you meant.
Yes, I just wanted us to be clear because we have different kinds of piping and treatment system and collection system. Obviously work together, but you know, we have different programs for different areas. So thank you. And hopefully Commissioner Clark, that provided a little more clarity.
Yeah, that helps. I'm just trying to wrap my arms around the miles and miles of pipe and valves and infrastructure that the district is responsible for. And I think it's a pretty big job to get that all that information collected, and sounds like you guys are working on it now and in the future.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Brad?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on Commissioner Clark's comments, and I would be interested in finding out what we do have available, and as far as information is concerned on installation dates and what we know, and just as importantly, what we don't know, and where the gaps are in the information that we would like to have. And what we might need to do to get where we want to be, as far as knowing what we want to know. How do we get there? How long will it take? Maybe that's a big ask in the near term, but finding out what we do know initially and where we want to go in the future, I think would be very helpful. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions?
Can I ask
Thank
a
you, Bill.
clarifying question of Commissioner
ahead,
Murphy?
Eric.
Commissioner Murphy, are you looking for information in solely the collection system, or are you also looking for the treatment plant as well?
Well, I guess both, but I guess I was my head was wrapped around the collection system at the moment, and given the recent spill that we had, I think that one of the concerns I have is where, I mean, not all spills are created equally, and some can do more damage to the environment than others. Some can be contained, you know, and so I guess I'm interested in anything we can do to minimize the you know, greater environmental impacts is where kind of I'm going. And to me, it seems like the collection system is, I mean, it's how many hundreds of miles of pipes do we have? How many forest mains do we have? It's the opportunities for considerable damage are, I mean, they're great, and for the treatment system, maybe not so much. I don't know, but I don't know if I'm making any sense, but I'm interested in, that's what I'm interested in.
Thank you.
Bill?
Morning. I'm Bill Walker. I'm the Deputy Executive Director. I want to make a couple of follow-up comments here. First, I want to echo what Commissioner Murphy said. There's a pretty critical distinction between underground piping at the plant versus in the collection system for the reasons you described. I think given recent events, what's most interesting here to the Commission is the collection system. The other point I want to make is a little bit of background. we manage the collection system through a process that we call collection system facility planning. Periodically, every 5 to 10 years, we do a thorough review of that system, both its capacity needs for the future and its condition. And that falls to my department. We already had on our schedule a plan to come to the commission sometime slightly before or during this year's capital improvements planning process to describe our current work. We're in the middle of doing an update of that facility plan. That includes, as has been said, an inventory of those assets, some information about their condition, and so on. So I guess I'm trying to reassure everyone that we have a pretty good handle on the collection system, and we're planning to bring some more information to people on that. We may speed up that presentation given people's interest, but it was already on our radar.
Thanks, Bill.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Brad? Anyone else have any comments or questions? Okay, seeing none. Well, yeah, I think Bill had a good suggestion to move that up a little bit, given our interest with the recent spill. So seeing no others, we'll move on to item 5A, the executive director update. Michael?
Okay. I have two things to report. First, I just wanted to summarize that the commission just received reports on two major organizational initiatives to improve our effectiveness and resiliency. And it is the efforts such as this that help us address affordability concerns from our owner communities. And as we work to improve how we deliver value, as you heard from both Dana, Eric, and Matt, we are making tangible efforts to maintain stable rates for the long term. And it should be pretty clear by those presentations you saw today. I also want to, as I mentioned, I want to share with you more about the sanitary sewer overflow we had last Thursday and share a little bit about the experience. We did have an overflow that resulted in sewage entering Lake Mendota in the Spring Harbor neighborhood. Last Thursday, district were doing some planned maintenance on a valve in one of our manholes, and the valve was rusted and staff were trying to loosen it to replace that valve, and it broke unexpectedly. The rush of wastewater from the broken valve combined with a quick shift in pressure in the system then created a blockage in the sewer collection system, resulting in an overflow of wastewater from the manhole where maintenance was being done. That overflow began around 11 a.m. and our emergency response began shortly thereafter. Two homes adjacent to the overflow site experienced basement backups. Additionally, the work site was near a grassed waterway that conveys stormwater to Lake Mendota. While we took steps to curb the amount of wastewater entering the channel and the lake, including sandbagging and repumping overflow into the collection system, some wastewater entered the lake. Approximately 45,000 gallons of wastewater were released in the overflow, with approximately 34,000 gallons entering Lake Mendota via the grass stormwater greenway. The majority of the release occurred during this initial emergency. Time and weather were not in our favor that day and evening, with an anticipated for the next day having more rainfall and increased wastewater flows expected as folks were coming home from work and using water in their homes. To replace the broken valve, it requires a single collection system services staff member had to be lowered into the manhole, which is a confined space. Safety is a top priority for the district, and to get the valve on, we had to lower the level of wastewater in the manhole for our colleague to access the valve and work safely. Unfortunately, it was necessary to release some wastewater into the grassed waterway. However, thanks to the assistance of the City of Madison, we were able to recover most of this wastewater with the city's vacuum truck for the actual emergency installation. Once the wastewater level in the manhole was low enough to access the valve, staff began to lower their colleague into the manhole and the clock started ticking. We had less than 10 minutes to set the valve before the manhole began to refill. The collection system staffer successfully placed the valve and secured half the bolts. Engineers and technical staff then performed a second drawdown of the manhole so another staff member could place and secure the remaining bolts. The sewer system in the area was back in working order by 7 p.m. and the site was cleaned up by 10:30 p.m. We have submitted a claim with our insurance company to address the damage property owners experienced from this event. Statewide Services is the third-party administrator for the League of Wisconsin Municipalities Mutual Insurance Liability Program. And I just want to assure you that we are in the process of reviewing the claims that will be coming in. A sanitary sewer overflow is never good news. And we all here understand the frustration and headaches it can cause, especially when it impacts people's homes or one of our local waterways. For this, I extend my apologies to all those affected. As with any major incident, we will conduct an after-action review to investigate the occurrence to see what could have been done differently to either prevent or mitigate future incidents. Another important note here is that, like many other utilities around the state and nation, our infrastructure is aging, as you know, commissioners, and some of our assets are over 100 years old. And our capital improvements plan does take a look at our 7-year horizon to identify, prioritize, and fund projects to improve the reliability, resiliency, and capacity of our system. And continued commission and community support of this plan and the district budget allows us to continue to fund these improvements over time. And finally, before I turn it over to Eric Dundee, who will share some more details and provide some pictures of the event, I have a few more things. As you heard today, we have a reliability-centered maintenance program that will help us manage the system more effectively. Replacing valves such as which was scheduled last week is an example of us identifying a valve that needed to be replaced, and the work was scheduled and conducted. It is also worth mentioning that the incident command system deployed for this emergency allowed the district to respond quickly and effectively. This was confirmed by the DNR during a Clean Lakes Alliance Community Board meeting on Tuesday. Eric Dundee deserves credit for introducing the system to the district, along with the team, the entire team that worked long hours under very stressful conditions to make this repair safely and quickly. As you may have seen last night or later yesterday afternoon, I also shared a letter that I received from the county executive with some questions regarding the event. I felt the county executive's correspondence was thoughtful and productive. I am preparing a response to the letter, and he also requested that we shed some light on the questions publicly, so I'm exploring options with my staff. With the overview of the situation, I'd like to turn it over to Eric to provide you with more technical details of what happened. Eric?
Thank you. And I assume you can see my screen, so
We
we'll
can.
continue. Thank you. So yeah, as Michael said, he walked you through the timeline and what happened. Sometimes pictures say a lot. So with that, I just wanted to go through kind of what I would call a graphical representation for you on what happened. So as we start, I'm actually going to go back to the previous topic about reliability-centered maintenance and assets. I would actually tell you this here, this picture shows you exactly what we do for the collection system. We use GIS to have data here. And in this specific case, we have the whole collection system. So we're talking about 145 miles of pipe. That's what we have. We have 98 miles of gravity main, which in our GIS system would be the blue lines, if you can see those. And I apologize for those who can't see color, but that would be the blue lines. The red lines are force mains. So we have 32 miles of raw wastewater force mains. And then we also have our miles of pipe for effluent force mains back to our outfalls. So on the screen, you can see in the center, if you can see my pointer of the inset, there is a red manhole here, pink. That manhole is the manhole we were trying to work in. So as people have tried to understand the situation, that manhole is, I would call that a conflict structure. It has a gravity sewer main flowing through it, and it has a force main flowing through it. Now, the force main is not an open system, so it's just the pipe going through the manhole. But that is right here in this area. The grass waterway that the city of Madison was under construction with, and Michael has talked about, is right to the west northwest of the property, or of our gravity main, going down to Lake Mendota Drive and Lake Mendota. So that's just along the north side, I would call that. So I'll move through here and I'll come back to this picture here in a couple slides, but that's kind of the setup we were at, is we were working in this manhole off of University Avenue to replace the valve. The greenway was to the north. We'll go through here. So this is what the manhole looks like. So if you think about that blue line you saw, that was here, a 12-inch gravity main going under or at the bottom of the sewer manhole, and then elevated in that is the 20-inch force main. From that force main, this is a low point in the force main. So in design, so in the 70s when this was built, these valves were put in to give us the ability to drain that force main. For those who may have heard these terms before, it's a force main drain valve. We call it, or we have staff that call it, the dump valve, because basically what the goal here is you are opening that up and you are relieving the wastewater or sediment or things that build up at the bottom of the low point of the force main. So to give you a little bit closer look, and this, I apologize, is pretty difficult to see, but the force main is the lighter pipe above, just kind of through the center of the manhole, really dark, it's hard to see, is the gravity line going under. And then just to the bottom of that, to the south, and with the arrows, that is the dump valve. The whole idea is that you're able to, once again, open this valve, control wastewater out of that pipe, sediment out of that pipe, to clean it out, and then it would go into the gravity main for relief. And as we've talked and went through this process from Thursday to now, we've already started our review of the situation. So here it is. Here's what the 50-year-old valve looks like. Here in the bottom right of the screen is the actual plug valve, is the actual plug. So that is what we were trying to get opened to relieve the pipe. As you can see with the condition, it was frozen in place. What we have now also found is on the other side of the pipe, so where the force main was, you can see that this was already solid sediment, grease, other things that have settled into the force main. So we already now know this, and I'll get back to this in a second, but when that valve opened up, this type of material is what came out of the force main into the gravity main and helped create the blockage in the gravity main that created the SSO. So, there's a couple things going on in this situation, and really that's part of the story here, is that amount of material that was in the force main that came out and helped create the blockage. So I'm going to go back to the map to explain it a little closer. So here's the manhole that we were working in, and directly downstream. So on this picture, it's up, but downstream in the gravity line, if you can see manhole 05204, past that manhole is where the plug happened. So all of that sediment, some of the tools, debris got washed down and blocked in that 12-inch line just past the manhole. As soon as that blocked, this manhole here filled up with sewage. Two things happen when the manhole fills up with sewage. The first thing is, to the bottom left and top right, you see the different color pipe. Those two pipes are City of Madison mains for Camelot. And what happens is when that fills up, it backed up the two residence homes. So basically the water got so high that it backed up into the homes. The other part is on the top, this is that gravity main that got clogged just past this manhole. And this is where we needed the assistance of the City of Madison to be in response. And I will just say they've been a great partner when we have these emergencies. They come out, they respond right away. Vector trucks. In this case, we needed what they call a rotor truck. They needed to actually kind of pound through the debris to break it up. So that's the manhole. Getting a little bit into the pieces of work that happened. Here is staff on site. This is the manhole and the constraints we are working with in the actual manhole that the valve broke. In the center of the screen, you can see this blue thing tied up on the tripod. That's the new valve. That's us trying to get the valve down into the manhole tightly. Our collection system services crew right here with the harnesses on and the boots on, this is them preparing to get down in and figure out the plan to get in. And as Michael said, in that 10 minutes to get bolts on that, you can see the bolt patterns and how things get attached here, get down in there and do that. So, you know, we had safety staff there. We had many other staff working to do that. As we were working on all that, I do want to say our communications group really helped, you know, work on the public outreach. This was a piece of a message that they actually took out to site and we handed out to neighborhood residents that we thought could be affected. The idea here was to get out there, get the information out. They had worked with Dane County Public Health. They've worked, we had our operations team working with the DNR on response and spill hotline. Amanda and her group also worked with Dane County Emergency Management and the City Emergency Management. So as Michael talked about, Incident Command, ICS, Emergency Response, we delegated work to each department or person to make the response as fast as possible. I mean, that was the goal here, was to minimize the SSO. So as we go through, here's some of the cleanup. So as we talked about on the right, this was an active construction site. So the City of Madison is installing, building a new greenway through here. So you see, you know, bare ground, you see some rock breaker, whatever you want to call it. But you also see in the background, the City of Madison Vector truck there. You know, they were on site very quick, helping us. In the middle, as Michael talked about some of the things we did to try to hold back sewage from Lake Mendota, this is our staff setting up sandbags. And you can see in the middle how we were able to hold back the wastewater and pump it out back into the sanitary sewer. So the whole goal for us was to capture as much as possible and get it back into the sewer. And then here's some after pictures. So this is the day after. This was the actual manhole that had the sewer overflow in it. Once again, active construction site. So all of this rock was already there. You know, this is part of a tracking pad for some of the utility work that was going on in the greenway. So just wanted to show that. And then the next picture is kind of the look down the site. So from the manhole, you can look towards Lake Mendota. And, it did rain, as Michael said, weather was not on our side. So we knew we saw rain coming the next day, and we scheduled our staff. We actually sent people home at the beginning of this to go get some rest, to come back, because we knew we were going to have a situation where staff were going to abut what I would have as an internal rule of nobody in an emergency situation over 16 hours in a shift. And, our staff come in at 6 at night or 6 in the morning. So as you're getting closer to the end, we knew that we get enough people on site, then we have to figure out what staffing looks like to keep response going for an extended period of time. And then the last slide I want to make sure we touch on is kind of the follow-on actions. So for us, this isn't I like the words follow on. This isn't over for us. We still have steps that we're taking. One thing to note for the commission, though, is that all DNR reporting and legal notices were completed timely. We have been in contact with the DNR and public health, continuing that. City of Madison, they have a project manager on the Greenway project that I've been in touch with multiple times. As Michael said, working through the insurance process with the two property owners. And then we do have scheduled for a couple weeks from now the district after action review. Every incident like this, we do go through an after action review to detail some of the things that we've implemented with reliability centered maintenance. One thing you need to do is a root cause analysis. So what we really need to dig into on this is not that the valve was bad. We know it's bad as a 50-year old valve. What we need to do is look at how we should be changing our maintenance practices, or even practices to replace that valve, to try to avoid this for the future. And with that, I will take questions.
Okay, thank you, Eric and Michael. Anybody have any questions? I just want to say a couple things. First of all, I think we'd be interested to know when you expect to complete your after action review, and if that would could be presented to the commission. And then secondly, kind of related to that, is the county executive's letter. If we could get your response, Michael, copy to us. I don't know if you think we should see it before it goes out, or just copy us when it's going out. It'd be fine. Marcia?
Thank you, Chair. I'm just wearing my Alder hat, and I want to know how soon this, like our meetings video, will be shareable, so that I can make sure that the district Alder has the opportunity to watch this video and do whatever he would like to do with it, to share with constituents, to know, I really appreciate the seriousness and the thoroughness of this presentation, and I think you will too. Thank you.
Commissioner Rummel, I can answer that question. This is Amanda Wagner, the Communications and Public Affairs Director. We actually live stream our commission meeting, so it's available now and then is on our YouTube channel as well. So it is there, and some of those constituents may even be watching now, so it's readily available.
Amanda, maybe you could send an email with the link to the Alder for the district. And then maybe also the county executive, so I think it answers a lot of questions, and also raises more questions, as Eric said. But
yeah, it's the District 19 Alder, and I didn't think about when the section started, but maybe just sort of give a time, when to check in on the timing. Thank you so much, Amanda.
You bet.
Commissioner Hovell, I'll answer your question on the after action review. So we actually have that planned for April 4th. Now, of course, we won't have our actions and review done after that, but that's when we have our staff meeting for that. So to come back to the commission, I will just give you a tentative timeline. That's probably, the end of April for that. And just to give some examples of how these go for the district is what we will do is we will present a list of our actions after review. So we do this in a very formal manner of what went well, what didn't go well, and what we would do differently, or what are the steps we take in the future. And that's what you should expect from us, just to give you that information.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Anyone else? Beth?
Yeah, thank you. This presentation has been really helpful. I just have a question kind of related to the letter we saw from Joe Parisi, and that is how many other 50-year-old valves do we have out there that, we need to start thinking about needing replacement and such. So just kind of, looking toward the future, what do we have to do to kind of mitigate or help prevent something like this happening again? Thank you.
Well, I'd like to be transparent here. There is another valve on a line not too far away from this that is in the same situation. So we've already done that review of that system, and we knew or know that there is another valve like this on the system. So, that is also part of our after action review, because now we have the risks. We know that there is sediment deposit, or there are things in this force main that could create a clog, when the wastewater is discharged. So just to give that for transparency for you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate
Greg,
it.
you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick question, Eric. So these are not, valves of this type are not in danger of failing. How do I want to say this? Just out of the blue, right? It's really the maintenance, it's really the action, like using trying to fix something on your car underneath it, right? You look at it and you go, yeah, I know that's not going to work, right? And so it's not just, as long as you leave it alone, it's likely safe. It's the act of trying to make it do its job that actually causes the problem, right?
That is a perfect way to put it, Greg. Yeah, as they sit now, those valves represent no risk because they are frozen closed, which allows the force main to work properly. So, but you're correct. Once you touch it, there is risk.
And I suppose because it's with a force main, you really don't want to be working those valves regularly, right? Because that, like you said, anytime you have a force main with a valve poses a bigger risk than a valve in a non-force main, I would think.
Yeah, in this case, this was planned maintenance. This was identified as a replacement that we needed to do. We had diverted flow, to, away from pumping through this force main. So, there was mitigation steps that we took just in general for the overall project. But yeah, the force mains present a totally different situation than a gravity main would.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, particularly with all the debris that accumulates in the low point, which I guess is meant to be emptied out and cleaned. Okay, I don't see any other hands up for any other questions, so thank you very much. Michael, do you have anything else in your report?
I do not.
Okay, then we'll move on to Paul Kent with Regulatory and Legal.
Good morning, everyone. The legislature is rapidly winding down and will not come back until spring of next year, for better or for worse. There are a couple of bills that we've been tracking that have made their way through the houses and are awaiting governor's signature. One of them is the de-icer certification program. And the other has been the I&I program to make it eligible for clean water funds. So we are cautiously optimistic that the governor will be signing those, probably signing, we're anticipating in early April. The bill that has created the most controversy has been the PFAS bill. All indications are that the governor is going to veto. The bill is still hoping to try and leverage the money, but that I think is a drama that is going to be played out here in the next few weeks. Just other couple of things to note very quickly. One is that we have been alerted to some shortfalls in the Clean Water Fund program, and been working with Michael and some of our colleagues at Green Bay and Milwaukee and other places to figure out a way to try and address that to ensure that there's adequate funding. There is a couple of technical processes that may allow us to avoid this or solve the problem before the legislature comes back next spring. So we're in the process of working through those. And the disinfection, which hasn't been an issue for the district because we have it in our permit, but the department is continuing to work on guidance that basically will continue to expand the disinfection period. We're continuing to comment on that. It's likely, the indications we're hearing is that it's likely to come out in the next few weeks or months, and we may have some additional comment at that point. So kind of wrapping up on the regulatory front for a while, but those are the key items. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Paul. Anyone have any questions? Okay, I see none. So thanks. Okay, future meeting schedule, that's in the packet. As you know, we approved the resolution for expenditure for some training sessions with that firm from Canada. And Michael and I when we had our meeting on Monday, we talked about a little bit about maybe even though the presenter may be presenting via Zoom, is having the commission session in person to allow better interaction between the commission when we do those. But I guess Michael, I was thinking about it more after Monday, and maybe we can talk to see what the format of the meetings are, if it's just a presentation, but if there's interaction with the commission, it would be a different matter than just a formal presentation. So we can talk more about that when you talk to Rose and see how she's going to facilitate in what she has planned. Does that make sense?
It does. It does.
Okay, so that just look forward to maybe some more in-person sessions, depending on how Rose schedules up her duties there. Okay, let's see. Any other business? And do we have a motion to adjourn?
It's Wilson. I'll go ahead and move to adjourn.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by?
Second time, Commissioner Clark.
Okay, motion by Commissioner Wilson, second by Commissioner Clark to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed? None. Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rainy weather today.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
Yep, see ya.
Bye.
Bye.